Hi, everybody. I'm Dana. I'm also known as the Poetry Whisperer. That's a nickname given to me by some of my awesome students on OutSchool. So if you're interested in classes on poetry or on writing and literature subjects from sentences to short stories to essays with those pesky works cited pages, come look me up on OutSchool, or you can see a whole list of my classes on thepoetrywhisperer.com. So today what I have for you is a poem. That's not really a poem. By a poet who is not actually a poet. And I'm not going to show you the first verse yet because your brain would go, oh yeah, I know that, no big deal. Starting with the second verse, you're going to recognize the last two lines, but not the rest of it. And it might kind of surprise you. So let me read the second verse. On the shore dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes, what is that which the breeze o'er the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, now conceals, now discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, now shines on the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, oh long may it wave, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Yeah, now you know what poem I'm talking about, right? Only you're saying, it's not a poem, it's actually a song. Yeah, you're right, and you know what else? It's an old English drinking song. So there is a lot to learn about this poem. And when I tell you that, I know you've never seen the second verse, but guess what? There is a third verse and a fourth verse. I know, mind blown. So now you doubtless recognize this poem, right? Or should I say this song? We know it as the Star-Spangled Banner, but guess what? That was not its name. It was originally named The Defense of Fort McHenry. It was by a young man named Francis Scott Key, who was born in 1779 and who in 1814 happened to be on a ship watching the British bomb Fort McHenry in Baltimore Harbor. Now, who was Francis Scott Key? Do you think he traveled to Baltimore Harbor with the intention of writing an awesome commemorative poem about the battle? No, he was not even a poet. He was a lawyer. So here we have a poem that's not a poem, that we know by a name that was not its name, written by a man who was not a poet. So how is that for a bunch of paradoxes? It all makes this poem that much more interesting. So Francis Scott Key, lawyer. In 1814, he did travel to Baltimore, and it was with the intention of using his legal skills to negotiate the release of a prisoner from the British, and this prisoner happened to be his friend. Now, at the time, just to back up a couple of years, you had the War of 1812 going on. It was a war between the United States and the British, always the British. The Revolutionary War had only been over for 40 years at this point, and we were at it again. This time, it was over a British violation of U.S. maritime rights. So 3 weeks before this September 1814 battle at Fort McHenry, the British had stormed their way through Washington. They had burned down a bunch of buildings. They had set the White House on fire, and they were bent on taking over Baltimore Harbor. So Francis Scott Key, he was going this way, the British were going this way, and everything kind of converged on Baltimore Harbor. So Key was there to help release his friend who was a prisoner, and everything went fine, but it was just a little bit too late or too dark or too dangerous for the two guys to venture back home. So they ended up spending the night on a boat in the harbor, watching the British attack Fort McHenry. Now, Fort McHenry, ironically enough, we're talking about the Star-Spangled Banner. Fort McHenry is built in the shape of a star. How cool is that? And all night long, while Francis Scott Key and his friend watched and listened, because how could you sleep through this, the British bombed Fort McHenry continuously. There were somewhere around 1,500 bombs shot at Fort McHenry. And throughout all of this, when the sun rose, guess what Key saw? He saw the flag. And that was what told them that the Americans had stood strong throughout the battle, that the flag was still waving, that freedom had been kept. They had fought hard and they had retained their freedom. And so Francis Scott Key was so touched by this that he wrote this song. And he intended it to be sung to the tune of, at the time, a popular English drinking ballad. So eventually, It would no longer be known as an English drinking ballad or as the Defense of Fort McHenry. Instead, its name would be changed to the Star-Spangled Banner. And in 1931, long after Key was dead, it would officially become the national anthem of the United States. Let's take a look at the poem. So here's verse 1. This is the one that you sing at every ball game, every sporting event you have probably ever been to if you are in the United States. Over on the right-hand side here, I'm going to put the rhyme scheme because rhyme schemes are fun and cool. In my live classes, as soon as I put a poem on the board, all the kids are like, ooh, 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 I'm doing the rhyme scheme, and it has become kind of a contest to see who can get the rhyme scheme done first. I teach very awesome kids. So this one is going to sound a little bit different when I say it rather than singing it, because when we sing it, sometimes you don't really focus on the words. We focus on those really high notes of the rocket's red glare. I promise not to sing anything. My grandfather always told me I could not carry a tune in a bucket. He was 100% right. So here's the first verse. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Hey, a few things about this. As a poetry teacher, I got to point out some things that I love. I always have my kids, first of all, look for organization and structure of a poem, including the rhyme scheme, and then also for any kind of literary devices. So I will just point out some that we probably miss in a song. Okay, you have neat alliteration throughout this. Alliteration is the repetition of sounds at the beginning of words. So look, broad stripes, bright stars. Okay, and you additionally, it's not just B, it's BR, BR, ST, ST. Okay, so if you think it was a mistake that Francis Scott Key happened to use broad stripes, bright stars with the same sounds, you're wrong, not a mistake. Okay, you've got more alliteration here. We watched were. You have rockets red, bombs bursting, so additional alliteration within the line. And then, of course, alliteration, how about just star-spangled? Another thing I love about this poem is the vocabulary. You've got perilous, gallantly, even spangled. When was the last time you used spangled in your everyday life? Make it your mission to use spangled in something this weekend. The Glitter Spangled Craft Project. All right, and then right here, I want you to pay attention to these final two lines, the DD rhyming lines. We call those a couplet when two lines rhyme one after the other. Okay, it's phrased as a question. Oh, say. Okay, we got the question mark at the end. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave? Okay, he is just looking out into the dawn's early light, looking to see if the flag is waving. Okay, imagine that. The bombs have been bursting all night, and you look out, is the flag still there? Okay, you've also, something else to pay attention to. Throughout the poem, you have these metaphors of light. Okay, what does light signify? Hope, beacon of hope. In a war, what do you have when everything else is gone? You have hope. So you have light, gleaming, stars. Pay attention to those because you'll see these throughout the poem. On to verse 2. I'll read it out loud again just for fun. On the shore, dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes, what is that which the breeze o'er the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, now conceals, now discloses, now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, now shines on the stream. 'Tis the star-spangled banner, oh long may it wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. This stanza, or this verse, is answering the question posed in the first one. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? It's like, please tell me, are we still Americans or are we British now? This is the answer here. The Star-Spangled Banner is indeed still waving. All is well. So look at, again, the literary devices. What do you see this time? You've got haughty host. Wonderful alliteration. Who is the haughty host? The foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes. We're talking about the British there. That's the foe, the foe's haughty host. Now, the mists of the deep. What beautiful imagery. What is the mists of the deep? Okay, think of the ocean in the early morning, the steam or the mist above the ocean. That is it. And what is this mist of the ocean doing along with the wind? It's concealing and disclosing the flag. So the Star-Spangled Banner is literally waving, but you can't really see it clearly. And it's also kind of metaphorical for war itself. At the end of a battle, it's probably like, okay, who won? Who lost? What's the casualty count? There's a lot of confusion. So here they are seeing the flag, not quite yet clearly. It's a little bit concealed. Now you can see it. Okay, think of a flag flapping in the wind. That is exactly what it's doing. You also have some other things here. This always reminds me of Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, when you have a rhyme within a line. Gleam, beam. You've got more alliteration. Shines on the stream, and pair that with Star-Spangled Banner, and you have lots of cool S words. If you've ever wondered why so many poets use S and L's in their alliteration, it's because those are some of the easiest letters in the English language to see. Try writing a tongue twister that uses R. Ricky the robot ratcheted something, something, something. It's a lot trickier to say. And then, of course, you have this couplet down here. Again, you have similar phrases repeated. Star-Spangled Banner, may it wave, land of the free, home of the brave. Guess what? You're going to see that again, and then again. Stanza 3. Oh, where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out, their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight and the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. So everything has become clear. The flag is no longer obscured. We know exactly who won. And in fact, this stanza is a little bit taunting. Reread that first part. And where is that band who so vauntingly swore? Guess who he's talking about? He's talking about those guys who just 3 weeks earlier lit the White House on fire. Kind of like, where'd y'all go? What do you think of us now? It's a little more serious than that, because what would have happened if the British had won the War of 1812, or even just this battle? They swore that the Americans would no longer have a home in a country. In other words, Americans would no longer be Americans. They would be what? British. Okay, so this was a very serious battle. And then this is a great line right here. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps pollution. Yes, alliteration, F and F. You've also got what's called consonants. You've got this L and then repeated L right there. That makes it sound really nice. But think of soldiers marching. Where had the British just marched? Straight through Washington, into the epicenter of the United States. Their foul footsteps polluted Washington, and now what has happened? Their own blood has washed out their pollution. Very neat image. And then down here, more serious stuff. What has happened to the British? Some of them fled the terror of flight, and then the gloom of the grave. In war, let's never forget that people actually die. Even when we're happy to have won, people still die. But then here, more of this. Star-Spangled Banner doth wave, land of the free, home of the brave. One more verse. Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, for our cause it is just. And this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. All right, this is like the reflection stanza. Okay, it's where Francis Scott Key is kind of telling you what he thinks of the whole situation. Spoiler alert, it's a good thing. He likes it. He's also giving homage to who? To God. He's saying, we trusted in God and this is what we get out of it. And interestingly enough, what's written on all of our coins? In God we trust. Guess where that came from? This poem right here, Francis Scott Key. So a few words in here, free men. A lot of times we think about free men in terms of slavery. Free men here refers to Americans, everyone in the United States, because he's saying the United States will remain free, and everyone in the United States is free men. And these free men will continue to stand between their homes and war. They will stand straight and strong and fight off the British or whoever else comes along. And this is where he starts giving God due as the rescuer and the preserver of a nation. You have some good alliteration: praise, power, preserved. And again, I think this is the same line as the last one in terms of, I think it's the fifth line. You have this right here, must and just. So a rhyme within a line, just like Edgar Allan Poe. And then these last two lines end with a finality. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. These last two lines here, it's like a declaration. It shall forever wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. So happy Independence Day, and do your best to sing this to the tune of the Old English drinking song. Bye-bye.